Yeah. All right. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody, to our first ever virtual chat with Bobby and myself. We are a part of the Smush St. Clair .com.
And we are a speaking engagement firm in which our focus is on autism self-advocacy, in which Nick and I do speaking engagements regarding how Nick and I, as autistics, work towards advocating for things we need and how to help others on the spectrum advocate for themselves.
So, what we're going to be talking about first is we want to talk about some story, our two stories on how we overcame the pandemic and how the pandemic has affected us and the rest of the autistics socially, emotionally, financially, and mentally.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this is our topic, being autistic on COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby, I understand that we have two different stories on how we overcame the COVID-19 as it has started, and I would love to hear your story on how you overcame uh, its effects on COVID-19 as an autistic.
Right.
So why don't you tell me your story, and I'll tell you guys my story on how we overcame this.
Okay. Okay. So one thing I do want to talk about is mostly how the year started for me. So the year started for me very much, actually, to be honest, 2020 started really good. You know, I was I've been working at a new job that I really enjoy. It's working as a residential therapist with with autistic autistic adolescents at a residential home, and that's been going very well. And you know, Nick, you and I had a big speaking engagement.
Yeah, we did.
Mhm.
It was really great.
It was. It was at where was it called?
It was in Fusion Cherry Hill.
Fusion. That's it. Yes, and it was just amazing. All the what we talked about, all the responses to it was just phenomenal, and everything about it was great. And we were looking forward, and people were asking for us to do more of them.
Yeah.
And
How many people actually showed up to that one? It was quite a bit, like 20 or something.
um, yeah, it had to be like around there, even more than that. Anywho, and I was going to be a keynote speaker at a conference that coming May. So, everything seemed to have been going very well. Um, However, then March came along, and we were getting news reports about what's been going on, about, you know, you know, at first, I thought when it first was escalating in China, like I thought to myself, of course I thought it was serious, but, learning from past pandemics that occurred there, you know, like the SARS, for instance, back in 2009, 2003, thought, okay, it'll work itself out. And then I heard it hit Italy, that's when, to me, like, being of Italian descent and loving Italy and the people and culture there, it really hit me hard. And then it came here to the US. And then, I thought, like, I still thought, okay, we just got to take caution. And then all of a sudden, it sensed like there was a sense of fear that was bringing about, a sense of fear that I felt during it. And it was just like I didn't know what the future was going to hold. I didn't know, like, was there going to be a tomorrow? Was there going to be, like, all that fear and anxiety, like engulfed in me? It just put me in such a, oh, I it was horrifying for me, just knowing that, what do I have to isolate myself? Like, I don't do well with isolation. I'll tell you that right now.
Me either. Nope.
And there's been times, ups and downs, where my mental health was was like down, was extremely down. It's just it's been such a horrifying experience for me during that whole time. I was just so horrified for it. And so before I continue, what Nick? How about your story?
Well, when it began in 2020, before that, I mean, it was just like as it was. We had a great speech, like you said, we had a great speech, and me personally, I'm an artist, and I have displayed artwork all in the libraries across New Jersey. One of my Some of my exhibits were in Cape May. One of my exhibits was up in South Amboy. One of my exhibits was also in Piscataway, which is near New Brunswick. And I also had library exhibits in Cherry Hill. I had Haddonfield. There was Morristown, and to me, everything was going great. So not only was I speaking with Bobby, but I was also doing artwork, and I had a lot of support from my artwork as well. And when the pandemic hit, it not only impacted me mentally, but it also crushed me because I also had some exhibits going on in North Jersey. One of them was Ewing, which is right next to Trenton, Robbinsville. There was, I think, just to name a couple. But they ended up, and then there was another in Old Bridge. There was another in Middletown, I think, which is right around like Monmouth County. And it was really sad because I had to cancel all those exhibits. It was very tough for me because of the COVID restrictions that were going on. Now, when it just started, like when it first hit the United States, I took it like as if it was the swine flu because I didn't
Yeah.
really remember the SARS pandemic. I was like 8, 9 years old when that happened, but I remember the swine flu epidemic when that happened. I was a little bit afraid, but that worked itself out, like Bobby said, for
Hmm.
SARS. So we knew it worked out, but I took it as if it was the swine flu. And then there was information regarding potentially how deadly it would become. And I realized how scary it became. And I did get scared of the pandemic. I was so scared that I did landscaping, and I was one of the essential workers as well. Like you do social work,
Hmm.
I was another essential worker.
Hmm.
So I was scared of it at first, like so scared that I had to take a whole week off because of it. And yeah, it was very tough. But moving forward, I mean, I do want to talk about how I overcame the pandemic. But first, how did you overcome the pandemic?
Well, there was a lot, a number of things that went hand to hand on that. I know, for me, being like since being still keeping myself busy, I was still able to keep this to have my job, to stay with my job. I was still able to really make sure that I was working. I was still able to work, like I was still able to work. I was also able to maintain a good connection with family. Like I was still able to have that, you know. Like I wasn't like my biggest fear was isolation. Like I wasn't able to see my at the time girlfriend Julia. That was my biggest fear. I wasn't able to see her, and I wasn't able to see, you know, also my friends and family. Like I thought, I don't do well with, like I like face to face. Like that was always something for me, something that I did well for me, and I thought, you know, like that was a big fear. But slowly I was still able to see Julia. I was still able to see my family and even friends. Like maybe friends, it was kind of like slow in the beginning, but of course now it's much better. I can just see them now. So so that really, like, being able having that still feeling was helpful. Having that, hey, I was lucky. I'm lucky. And also, the thing is, I love doing things. I love going places, traveling. I loved going to festivals, like things like that. And because of course in the beginning of the pandemic, like those things were kind of, how's the word, like they were kind of like they were shut down. Like it's like you have to shelter in place. And for me, like I said, like I personally could not shelter in place. I couldn't shelter in place. Like I'm a guy who wants to keep moving. I don't like to be paused. But you know what? I was able to figure out ways for myself. I was still able to exercise. I was still able to, find ways to still stimulate myself. Like my girlfriend and I were still able to, you know, make do certain things differently. Like we had to see, like we used to go to the movies a lot, and then that's something we're gonna do when they open back up. So with that, like we were able to do like virtual theaters and things like that. So that really helped. And also we're in a group called Dimensions, which is done via Zoom about um, where we would part of J High where we would have like meetings. So that helped. Hopefully, on wood, that's gonna open up soon to face to face. But but yeah, I had to do that. Also, because the thing was like the I also and also when it comes to like adapting, like I Julia and I in July 2020 were originally going to the UK for a trip. However, because the travel ban at the time, and the thing was that was where I was going to propose to her on that was on that trip. Fortunately, I was able we were able to meet in August down in Cape May. Like her family is down the shore that month every year. And on Sunset Beach, I was able to propose for her. So I was able to adapt, like, certain ways. And I think that type of healthy adaptation really helped. It's still not easy, like, anxiety wise for me. But, just taking it one day at a time has been helpful for me.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot of things of how I overcame the pandemic. I remembered in May, well, we live in New Jersey, and the pandemic was starting to kind of subside a little bit. Like when I realized the numbers were going down and it wasn't really affecting us, I stopped being scared of going to work. So that was one of the ways that helped me out financially. Like I was able to get a job. I was able to keep working to make a substantial income for me to, you know, buy myself some food, pay my bills, and do all that stuff. For my drawing, it still hurted because I had to cancel half my exhibits, but
Mhm.
we were lucky. We were actually very lucky to, we were very lucky to go. We were lucky to do our first speech later on October 3rd when we did our when we did our what was it that we talked and we were in Havertown.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yeah, so we were able to do our we're still able to do our some speeches every now and then, and I was able to still do some drawing because I would still go to a few gatherings. My friends helped me come out of my shell. My friends helped me, go to so many different places, even eating places. They helped me go to Wawa. So they had a lot to do with helping me overcome my fear of the pandemic when it comes to the social aspect.
Mm.
So all in all, I could say over time, I stopped being scared of the pandemic. I wouldn't look at the numbers of the pandemic as much. I wouldn't, fear of. I obviously don't fear going to work or going to any establishments anymore.
Yeah. And I just, one of the things that I was fearful for me was that I people will see each other as threats. Like for me, like I don't want to be seen as a threat, you know? I don't want to see my fellow man as a threat, you know? Absolutely, stay cautious, stay like, you know, stay cautious, take precautions, but not to be seen as a threat is like, and sometimes people have, like I was afraid people would take that to the extreme. Like, and to me, I don't want to be seen as a threat. I don't want to see people I know as threats, you know?
I never really had that big of a problem as a threat. I mean, I kind of thought about that sometimes,
Yeah.
like people would tell me to wear a mask or do social distancing. But I think one of the worst things that I went through is that I would go into a store and I would see somebody that I recognized, but the problem was it would take me 10 seconds to recognize that person. You ever
Yeah.
get that all the time?
Yeah, like for me, like I have no problem with I know like during this time like definitely mask and distance like for me that's important. Um, but it was like I was afraid like I would have difficulty recognizing facial expressions, especially like as the autistic's one of the things that one of the things that we have difficulty with is understanding facial expressions, and understanding if someone's like, are they, deep in thought? Are they happy? Are they, upset, angry? You know, knowing that and learning that is something that's been lifelong for me. And, and I thought, like, the face mask would like kind of deter. Like that was the only thing about the face mask. Like I know that they're very important, and but that was like the only thing that kind of like I know was like that's the thing I was worried about. And like sometimes I still try to look and see how if I'm out and about. Definitely I'm wearing a mask, but I'm trying to see like how are you feel like are people like looking angry? Are they looking upset? Or like just I just especially when someone's wearing sunglasses and a mask, like there's no
Yeah.
way I can figure that out. But it's just but I think once things are getting better, because I know that like the mandatory masks aren't going to be permanent. Like there's still going to be people who are going to be wearing them if they feel sick. I think like they do in parts of Asia, which that would make sense.
No, it does make a lot of sense. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, but that's something I just been able to really work work on and still working on. A little better than before though. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I was thinking like in late 2020, like I no longer really fear the pandemic anymore.
Mm,
I don't really like when I go outside, I still wear a mask and everything, and I'm
yeah, of
sure.
course.
And the way I think of it is that I think every person should take the pandemic like how they would feel comfortable in handling it.
Mhm.
And I've handled it I felt like at first I was scared of it, like I said, but I felt like I'd handled it very well. I didn't have to go on the internet and look up numbers to ensure that the pandemic is okay anymore. I just started. I mean, I still have a lot of downtime to where I still have a lot of downtime to where I scroll through Facebook and everything, and that's that's kind of the only thing I do now. I don't. I mean, I still go hang out with my. I can still go out. I can go and shop and whenever I want. It's not. I feel like I wanted to do. I'm actually lucky to still have Morristown as still exhibiting my work on top
Yeah,
of that, which is really amazing for me.
yeah.
But I don't.
Very lucky, man.
I haven't been to the bar since. Murphy first reopened it, all the bars for outdoor dining, I haven't really been going out too much.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Like, and one thing Joy and I like do, we all like once a week or once every 2 weeks we would go out to dinner. That of course that was kind of hard in the beginning because I'm having to close down and just but so we've been learning how to cook with each other. That's something her and I have been doing, which is actually very good for us since we're going to be living with each other soon. Is doing that, and that's been doing very well. And once outdoor dining was set, we, depending on whether we've been able to do that. Um, so yeah, it's just adjusting and adapting. And one thing that was always a worry on my mind was the small businesses during it because they had to close down. To me, like I knew
Yeah.
people who have small businesses who, I have family of businesses. I have a friend of mine. She has like something that like my friend. She had a sensory gym for children for autistic children and children with also other learning and developmental and sensory abilities, and that was something she's worked for all her like she worked for and she was going to open
For a
and that
long time.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now like this happened and just I was worried about them, just I because me I personally think small businesses the are the are the are the stone to the keeping the community in place. I've always believed that. And but fortunately so far I there's been like capacity has been opening for them, and and they've been doing it safely. They've been finding ways to do it safely, so hopefully that continues. Yeah.
Continues until full capacity for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Going back to what you said, like how Nick, how you felt that there's some times in which how you were handling it well. For me, like there were times in which I did not handle it well.
Yeah.
I handled it actually pretty um in a way like it for me it was very like I felt like I wasn't handling it well at all. Like I like mentally I would felt like I was like a lot of things were going through my mind. I was just feeling like it was like things like things I never thought about, and it just my personality would go up and down, like my anxiety, my mood, up and down, and just basically it'd be based on like what people would say in social media and what people would say and
Yeah.
like the news. Like I could not watch the news because of it.
Yeah, I hate watching the news. I don't like even going on social media as much anymore because it's like all it is talking about and it's not just the pandemic, it's like what's going on throughout 2020 with all the riots and the politics and
Oh
all that
yeah.
stuff. It is, and all the biased stories on social media.
Oh
I
my
try my
God.
best not to go there, but there's so much downtime I have that I end up doing it, and it it gives me like a writer's block, like helping it makes me lose motivation to draw, and it's hard to it's really hard for me to get off of it because of the downtime the downtime that I have. It's but I try to think of solutions rather than stay with the problem. I mean, at least we have found the problem and we have found, what's been going on with ourselves. So we just try to think of, I mean, I do want to think of like solutions on maybe how we and even the people with autism in the community, how they could handle, you know, the pandemic socially
Yeah.
and financially and emotionally and mentally.
Mhm.
And I think so far we have discussed of how we overcame it mentally. You have done new. I mean, you guys have been cooking. I saw you just got engaged. You're able to, do stuff with
Mhm.
Julia more. So,
Mhm.
and for me, I reevaluated myself. I was always focused on drawing a lot, but now I'm able to focus on four different things. I'm able to focus on drawing. I'm able to focus on public speaking. I'm able to focus on finding ways to help out the autism community and the autistics themselves, and even landscaping on the side. So that was how I was able to, and I try my best to think about it to help me out mentally. So I don't try to have too much downtime.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but make just making sure that you have a set of set of skills for yourself, like set of coping skills for yourself to really help with that. Because my coping skills include like exercising, talking with my fiance, reading, find things that make me happy, and sometimes sometimes even during like I've been having I've had panic attacks regarding all like things like this, with the fears because of what happens. Like, oh, am I still going to be able to have my wedding, or am I still able to see the just just something that really has got me worried. But knowing to yourself, keeping yourself mindful has been is something that's helped me, and I would love to know what other term have been doing to for that.
My thing is, or one of my suggestions of solutions could be like, I know there's a lot of routines that other autistics are going through, and they're being, like, there's a place they always wanted to go and they can't go to it due to its restrictions, like certain places they can't go to anymore. So maybe, create a new routine for them, or they can always go for a walk or go for a ride or something like that. That's what when I was always, even before the pandemic, I always wanted to go for a ride. I always wanted to go for, I always wanted to go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
That, like you said, exercising, that's a lot of, that's what I would love. I mean, that's what I could, I encourage them to do, because it definitely helps them get a lot of stress off their mind,
Yeah,
you know,
and
and
more
that's more for mentally.
right, and most importantly, everybody is going to be very different with come to this. Like everyone is going to be so different how they handle it, how they cope with it. Like there's like especially with fellow autistics, because there's a phrase that Dr. Stephen Shore, an autistic professor, once said, is that if you met a person with autism, you met a person with autism. Everyone is going to be so different with
There's a
this.
lot of varieties too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And but going back to what you were saying, all the other things that were happening in 2020, like the riots and politics, especially and politics. Politics was like we were like during this pandemic, we were supposed to come together in this, like as we did like during other like difficult times, like World War II, the 9/11. Like those are times where we came together as one, despite our political identities. But this, like I felt it was we weren't coming together. We were coming separating apart, further apart. And
Yeah, it was awful. I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions on it, but like sometimes
yeah,
I feel like somebody is like kind of controlling all that, one person's kind of controlling all the biased stories, making biased stories on one person's view, and the other person's views. It's it's kind of hard to fathom, but and I don't want to jump to conclusions on that, but
right.
that's what I sometimes I feel like that's what's going on, and they're using that as like a business model rather than actually bringing people together. Like you said, it's horrible, but and there's a lot of people with downtime because some people have lost their jobs. But
Yeah.
I do want to go to financially as well, and maybe there could be some solutions to how they could overcome it financially, especially in older autistics.
Yes.
There is a lot of older autistics that may have had small businesses that have went down the drain
Yeah.
because the policies of politicians that have affected them or the restrictions that are going on. So I was thinking maybe that I still work doing landscaping. I would I would definitely suggest that they could find either landscaping jobs or warehouse jobs. They could find other small businesses that are still running that they could go to if they don't feel comfortable working at a bigger state of retail or a
Right.
bigger atmosphere in a warehouse. They can do that, or they
Right.
could work for like a private landscaper.
Right, definitely, and those are very good suggestions. And I know like there's been people on the autistics who have done things like Etsy or done things like that, or offered services in different areas based on like their skill set. And of course, everyone's going to be very different with this, I and I'm
Yeah, maybe they could use their obsessions and they could actually turn it into not just a hobby, but something they could make money off of. I like what we're trying to do. It goes very well hand in hand in life.
it does very much so. I agree. I agree very much so. And there's and especially now, like when you have to like adapt to certain areas, to certain things.
Maybe they might have to find a new industry if their industry or what they're working on is affected by the pandemic. That's why I had to reevaluate myself and see that public speaking is just as good, or and maybe like doing landscaping because that's still in demand. Everybody's going to demand landscaping,
Of course, everyone's going to demand, absolutely.
and people with autism, especially especially most especially the severe ones, they still need help. So I try my best to see if there were is people with autism that would want me to come over and like be a mentor to them, or just be generally a friend to them. That's what I would love to do.
That would be great. Yeah. And of course, like I said, every person's going to be different when it comes to this, because this has been a time where like some people have been affected and some have not, and everyone's story is different in regards to this. Um, but yeah, absolutely. So, what else?
We have talked about mentally, we've talked about financially. I do want to talk about socially. And
Yes,
obviously
absolutely.
many people with, like I said, many people with autism's routines have been messed up, like based on places they wanted to go. But
Hmm.
here in New Jersey, I mean, here and now in New Jersey, the capacity limits have been lifted, so it doesn't seem to affect the routines too much.
Yeah,
Like people can still go bowling, people can still go to the bars, people can still go to almost wherever they want, but they still have to follow some restrictions.
hmm,
And for me, I would love for people with autism to go outside. I would love for people with autism. I definitely encourage that, and still meet with people face to face, and especially outside, because there's not a lot of as far as I know, there's not a lot of spreading going on outside.
mm. Especially if it's like an open space and it's not like crowds.
I also understand that there is a lot of practice for social distancing outside, so they could do something like that.
Yeah.
And they can also go to and if they're inside, they can wear a mask unless they eat. I mean, it's
Hmm.
and even if I also understand that some autistics are comorbid with medical conditions as well.
Hmm.
So like I said, they can take it to however they the best solution for this scenario is to take it however they feel comfortable in handling that scenario.
Right, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. And I know in the beginning that was something I was afraid, like, am I gonna like, because in the beginning there were a lot of social restrictions,
Yeah.
unlike now. So that was something I was afraid of, like, when am I gonna isolate myself? That's not good for me, like emotionally, mentally, even like physical health, being so isolated like that. And that was my biggest fear. But as time went on, as things started to slowly open safely, like that's something that I really was able to get a hold on to. You know, it's yeah, it's still some difficulty now, but it's much better now than it was like in the beginning. So that really helped me.
Yes. Socially, I was scared to hang with people. Like when people would call me, I was scared to hang with people at first. But as I kept going to their like other people's houses and kept going out more and more and more, and I haven't felt I didn't even get it at all. I have not felt sick. I've been going to work every day. So that definitely actually helped me overcome it a
Yeah.
lot socially.
Hmm.
I was just able to I kind of went with the flow with it.
That's good. That's good. That's kind of like what I've been as time went on, I've been starting to go more with the flow with it. Like there's still moments where I still have that anxiety due to the pandemic, especially after seeing like news related things or social media things. But
Yeah.
it. But it doesn't last long as it did when it started.
Tough
And
times don't last forever.
no,
Tough people do.
I love that phrase. Tough times don't last forever. Tough people do.
That's not the first time I heard this before, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I do want to talk about, I think this is the last one, emotionally. Like I said, we talked about the emotion overcoming the fear of the coronavirus. I know that now, how do you feel about it now as far as emotions go? How, like, what were you able to, you said you were able to do new hobbies to like overcome your fear of the coronavirus. I was able to reevaluate and go to work and try to do my routine and still draw. That's how I was able to come overcome my fear of the coronavirus. And of course, new it helped when New Jersey's coronavirus numbers were subsiding at the time, and that I think that definitely all that combined really helped me with my emotions.
Hmm. Yeah, because for me, like it goes sort of hand in hand how I handle it mentally. Like at first, like my emotions, like I like in the past I was able to handle like before like anything that was like uncertainty. But this like I was like kind of lashing out at times, like really at myself, not at work and not like anywhere else, but at myself really. Just that type of self lashing, if you will. And that really like I never really did majorly before. And so that was something that was kind of scary for me to do. Yeah, and it was pretty much hard. Like I was afraid, it was because of that fear. But as time went on, I was able to find like coping skills to help with my emotions and actually even be open with my emotions. Like at first, like, I like I had some difficulty with like I was open with my emotions, but now I can be fully open with them now because of, taking it one day at a time and really coping with it, with utilizing the tools that I have to keep at myself at bay.
So yeah, I think that's all we gotta talk about for now. I mean, I'm sure there's some questions that I'm sure the audience would like to say. So if
Um,
we can, I think if we
yeah.
can unmute it real quick.
Yeah. Let me.
I'm sure there's some people that would like to.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, let's start with what are you going to start with?
Doing my best.
Probably.
Start with Connie.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you both for your talks. I appreciated it. Um, I remember when I heard about this talk, someone said that we could donate to your
Yeah.
GoFundMe page. And I was wondering how to do that.
Oh, to GoFundMe?
Yeah, how is there, how do you do that? Is there a name on the, how do I get to the GoFundMe page? That's the
Oh,
thing.
it's on the website. Let me see.
Oh, okay. And what's the name of the website?
It's www.schmussstclair.com. Let me see. Let me see if I could spell it for you.
Oh, SCHMUS?
Yes.
STCLAIR.com.
STCLAIR.com. Okay.
Yeah, it's www.schm, is it Mary,
US.
US,
And
ST,
then STCLAIR.com.
yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's great.
Yeah, and it's in the donate page. So once you
Okay.
get on the website, I think there's a like a tab thing on the right with the lines. You click on that,
Okay.
and then you hit the donate tab.
Okay. Thank you.
And you're welcome.
You're welcome.
And I was just going to say, that I like to do art too, and I also do therapy, so I could really relate to what you were talking about, both of you. And do you know about the app Redbubble? Someone told me about it. That if you do artwork, you can. This company you could send your work to this company, and they would make T-shirts or mugs, or they would put your artwork
I
on.
think I've heard of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think I've heard of it a couple times. You said
Yeah.
red.com?
Right. Redbubble, I think it is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it a couple times before.
I don't know exactly how it works. I'm sure they take a percentage of it, but I was just thinking if we could get a bunch of people that do art or want to contribute to something like that, that would be nice, because there are a lot of people on the spectrum that do like to do art and stuff, and I think that's a way that people could or raise money or whatever too, another avenue.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that would be
good.
nice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also another thing, I don't know why I forgot to do this, but I also have done a lot of paintings. Did some paintings.
Yes, that's right too. I've seen your work. That's right.
Yeah, I've seen
And
like
that's
different.
also very therapeutic. Another reason for doing it during the pandemic,
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been, as far as like galleries and exhibits are concerned, I've tried to think of even different ways to figure out maybe displaying my artwork virtually, or maybe a different place that's still open, like a restaurant or a smaller business that would still allow galleries. Like I said, I was lucky that the Morristown Library was still able to display my work. I mean, it is very lucky. It's kind of like almost business as usual.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad to. I'm really grateful for them to let me do that. And I always wonder, would there be a different way to display my artwork virtually? And Red is one of them. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and also I've done writing. Like I've written a lot of articles during
That's right.
my time during this pandemic. Even before that, I've been writing articles on autism, but I've been more in depth with them, and they've been shown to be very helpful. Like helpful for me. There's people
You
who
probably
reached
should
out.
do a book, Bob.
He's putting some on Facebook too. I've seen some before. It's on the Some of them are on the Mighty or something like that.
Yes, they're on the Mighty.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
of them are on the Mighty. They're really good.
They are good.
Talks
Yeah.
about like going through the anxiety of the pandemic, and also like what has helped me, and also talked about other topics, that we can even talk about at a next talk about masking. Masking, what we mean by like having to disguise ourselves
Right.
as autistics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
I had a question.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the vaccination? I know I got on a couple minutes late. It was hard to log on this time. How do you two feel about vaccination? Would you guys get it? Would you recommend to the autistic community that they should get it?
Well, for me, like I've received both doses of my vaccination. I'm fully vaccinated.
Good.
How did you feel about that? Like, did you get any, like, I'm sure some people had like body aches or they felt some kind of sick, as far as I've heard of vaccinations.
For me, like it was like after my first shot.
He felt dizzy, but he got his second shot. So.
Yeah, I felt like after the first shot, I had like a headache, but the second shot, I felt like dizzy and all that. But it just happened for a day. Of course, it's everyone's choice, but if you're able to do it, I would.
You would recommend it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, especially like since a lot of people. I do feel that it's going to help. It's going to help lower
absolutely.
numbers. It's going to, and with that, like bring us back to normal.
I feel like it's gonna suppress the virus. It's
And
gonna
I've heard that people on the spectrum, some of the people on the spectrum get bad cases when they do get the virus. So, I just based on that, I think it's not a bad idea to get it.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It is. And like I said, it's as long as it suppresses the virus, and sure there's like some people talking about like an immunity herd that could happen, and it would
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest causes to suppress the virus, as I'm sure it did for the previous epidemics and pandemics,
yeah, absolutely.
like the swine flu and the SARS.
Yeah, and you know what? The advantage here is that back in during the Spanish flu, which of course was a pandemic, like and when I say this, I'm not like discounting COVID, because the COVID is serious, but the Spanish flu, like there were more deaths in the Spanish flu, and not only that, but they didn't have the science we had, like the vaccines and all of those.
It's like when you get it, it's game over. That's what it was.
Yeah.
My grandmother and grandfather had it, and my grandmother lost all her hair.
Wow.
They took the children away from them because somebody had to take them, and they isolated. They made it through, but she lost all her hair during it, which is weird.
Wow, that's sad.
Was that coronavirus?
No, it was Spanish flu. This is way back.
Oh
This
wow.
is way back in whenever it was, 1918 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 18.
Yeah, 1918.
Yeah.
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 Like I said, I mean, tough people last, that's for sure. And as far as we're concerned, we definitely lasted pretty well throughout the pandemic. And
yeah,
we have not, we didn't get nothing. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I went out to socialize with, that, knocking on wood, and I've socialized with, not too many different people, but I've went out to eat pretty
But
often.
you wore a mask, right?
Yeah, I was able to wear a mask. Yeah. Before I ate, I had to wear a mask.
Yeah, so when you sit down, you have to, which makes sense.
Right.
And there was like social distance tables and stuff.
Yeah.
And the same was with the bars. I think I only went to the bar once after the pandemic, so it wasn't too, there was still the same settings and everything. But this is when they just had only outdoors. So
yeah. All right.
Good.
Well, thank you guys
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, you're very welcome. So I guess this concludes the being autistic and during COVID-19.
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you for
Okay.
And
attending.
thank you for attending very much.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
And we're gonna put this on online.
Good.
On
Good.
both our website, on our social media pages.
Okay,
So
great.
so this recording can be so other people can see it.
Make
Sure.
it shareable.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.